Is leaky gut a myth? Is it pseudoscience?
All right. So there's language that becomes really important here. Leaky gut syndrome is a myth. Because basically people have sort of made up this idea that there's this confluence of different symptoms occurring throughout the body that are part of this syndrome, like this diagnosis. That's not an acknowledged diagnosis. So we can't say that leaky gut syndrome is real. Now let's take leaky gut though, this concept. I was skeptical myself, but actually what we're really talking about here, if we zoom in on the gut and what's happening there, inside the tube of your intestine, there live 38 trillion microbes. And they're surrounded by what we call the epithelial barrier. It's a single layer of cells connected by these tight junctions. And this single layer of cells is what separates the inside of your intestine from your bloodstream, which basically means access to your entire body. Something that gets into your bloodstream could hit your brain within a few seconds. So this concept of leaky gut, really, the terminology that like I would prefer is increased intestinal permeability. And it basically means disruption or breakdown of this gut barrier. Now, your gut turns over faster and more than any other cell in your entire body. Every 3 to 5 days, you have a completely brand new gut lining.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And we want to support your body in terms of that process of basically like bringing on a brand new gut lining every 3 to 5 days. The way that we accomplish that is by making sure that those tight junctions that fasten the cells together are able to form properly. And how we do that is with butyrate. So butyrate specifically is the short chain fatty acid that has been associated with repairing and restoring the gut barrier. There's nothing that I've come across that helps more than butyrate in terms of accomplishing that specific goal. Anytime that we have disruption within the gut microbiome, so when it falls out of balance, when it becomes an inflammatory gut microbiome, the consequence of that is leaky gut. Anytime we get leaky gut, the consequence of that, where the gut barrier is not formidable anymore, the consequence of that is that now things start to get access to your immune system. So something called lipopolysaccharide that exists within the gut lumen starts to sneak across. Your immune system has been trained through millions, if not billions of years of evolution, far predating the existence of us as humans. Your immune system was trained to identify its old enemy, lipopolysaccharide, and activate. That's inflammation. So the reason why leaky gut is a big deal is because of that. The fact that when the gut barrier is not intact, it allows these things like lipopolysaccharide to sneak across. And that leads to what we would call chronic low-grade inflammation, which is at the root of many of the health conditions that we see across the United States today.
It's also referred to as endotoxin, is it not?
Yeah. Lipopolysaccharide and endotoxin are synonymous.
Wow.
So by the way, I want to tell you some of these things that you've been mentioning are in your book. I know that you don't need me to tell you this, but I wanted to tell you that I read your book cover to cover.
Oh, thank you.
And I thought that you did an incredible job.
Thank you so much. No, that means a lot coming from you. I'm very proud of the microbiome chapter in Genius Foods.
I thought the microbiome chapter was great. You mentioned that our ancestors ate 150 grams of fiber per day twice. So that was, I consider that a shout out. And I also thought that, honestly, it was a very balanced book. You are in this book, as I was reading it, maybe I'm biased, but I felt like you're far more plant-based than people may realize.
Yeah.
So out of 10 foods, 7 of the 10 foods are plant-based foods, right? So, I mean, to me, I understand your position on many different topics, and I may not be on board with all of it, but actually I think that there's this common ground that exists between us, which I think is important, because for outsiders who may be tuning in and hearing this podcast, they're like, oh, Will and Max are going to talk? They have different perspectives on things. Actually, I think that there's a lot more common ground than people may realize.
Oh, 100%. And I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. I'm not a carnivore. I think that's sometimes the brush that I get painted with. And I will admit that I do probably spend a disproportionate amount of time pushing back to what I see as being a lot of dogma and zealotry and misinformation from the plant-based advocates.
Does it
on
have to be
social media.
plant-based? Do we have to call them the plant-based advocates?
We can call them whatever you want. But it also comes from the industry, because ultra-processed foods tend to be plant-based,
Yeah.
right? Like Just Egg or Beyond Meat or the Impossible Burger. They're just much more profitable, and then you find yourself going up against these institutions. Like, I feel like Harvard has had a plant-based bias for a very long time, and that permeates a lot of the studies that they produce, which generate headlines because, of course, it's Harvard. And so I will admit that I probably spend a disproportionate amount of time pushing back against that. But you're 100% right when you characterize my actual recommendations, which are, I take a protein-forward approach, but I also am a big advocate of dark leafy greens, berries, whole plants, and things like that. And I've always been. I mean, if you look at the cover of my book, the vast majority of the real estate on my brain diagram is given to...
Well, I was going to say, I thought that actually if you look at the cover of your book, if that were a plate and a person were eating that plate, it would be a very balanced and fair plate.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people love to argue in the margins, but I think if you're actually grounded in science and logic, you're going to end up agreeing on 95% of the areas of
Yeah, I think that's true. Well,
debate.
because I think that the thing is that as you and I sit here right now, I think that we would both mutually agree that in this average American diet where 60% of calories are coming from ultra-processed foods, we would like to replace that, right? And I think that you would agree with me that the fiber intake, because you wrote about this in your book, the fiber intake in America is completely inadequate.
Yeah.
We're not even close. So we have to start by addressing that specific issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, if we were to move, replace the ultra-processed foods with whole plant foods in the way that you describe in your book, if we were to do that, and we not even change the animal product consumption at all, but we improve the quality of that animal product consumption, I think that that's a diet that you would get on board with. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like our health has obviously gotten worse and worse over the past few decades. Consumption of beef, for example, has declined. Our consumption of chicken has gone up. Our consumption of ultra-processed foods has skyrocketed. Added sugar has mostly skyrocketed, although I feel like I've seen trends where it's maybe on the decline subtly. I don't recall. Our consumption of vegetable oils and stuff like that has skyrocketed. So there are all these variables that I think make nutrition research really hard to do. I generally think that animal source foods, red meat, I think red meat is a health food. I think that we can get granular, and there's a tendency to want to let perfect be the enemy of the good. If I had all the money in the world and I could continually feed myself and my family regenerative, grass-fed, grass-finished meat, which, just putting the conversation about the environment and food equity and all that stuff on the back burner, if I could provide my family that kind of meat all the time, I mean, I would, but also I don't necessarily think that a piece of lean meat from the conventional system is unhealthy. I think you were saying earlier, it's always about what are we comparing the food to, right? It's always going to be a much better option, in my view, than what most Americans are currently eating for dinner.
Yeah. Do you worry about the antibiotics in the conventional system, though?
I don't. I think you've got to major in the majors and focus on the big rocks. And in a time when so many people are struggling with metabolic illness and overweight, I think to fearmonger one of our most satiating and nutrient-dense foods, I think that can produce harm. I really do. I think we got to stop fear-mongering animal source foods. I think we also need to support, because the other thing is that plant-based foods are not impervious to the consequences of industrial production either, right?
Sure.
Like a lot of plant-based foods now harbor
there's
kale,
issues. I've been, I think,
cadmium,
upfront about that.
Yeah. So there are risks and benefits to every single food, but as long as we can push our listeners to a more whole foods based diet, and now with all the research coming out on the value of prioritizing protein, I think that that's really we can get granular, and we can split hairs and all that stuff. But for most people, because also and I know you have major media experience as well. Like I've had the privilege of getting to go on the biggest TV shows in the United States, and I'm hyper aware because I've been doing TV the entirety of my career at this point. I'm hyper aware of the people that I'm reaching. Like I'm reaching people who live nearby a Whole Foods and an Erewhon, but I'm also reaching people who are watching like from behind the counter during their 9 to 5 at the gas station or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And I just don't think we can let perfect be the enemy of the good. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've always said progress over perfection. I love
that.
I certainly am not striving towards perfection, nor am I perfect myself. I do the best that I can.
Yeah.
I think though that there's value to, so let me put it this way. In my community, if there were people who were to thrive using the information that they can receive from you, I would 100% support that. Because I'm results driven. Like as a medical doctor, that's what I care about. I don't care whether or not you adhere directly to the exact things that I say, nor do I care at all if you match the diet that I eat. I don't expect you to, nor would I want you to. You got to find what works for you. So, and I would imagine that in the same regard, if there's people within your community that are like, you know what, I feel better with a more plant-based approach. Maybe it's not 100% plant-based. I don't think that's what I'm actually advocating for. I don't think that I ever really have been advocating for that. Like to me, I'm more about, I see it as like this. I'm speaking to the person who was me in 2012, right? And that person was eating fast food twice a day. And I'm trying to take that person and show them a way that they can improve their health. And I think that I'm quite sure that you have your own version of that sort of approach, because I know that having read your book, like the inspiration that came in a challenging way from your mom and everything that happened with her. So I know that like you have your perspective of how you want to help people, and that's what you're trying to do.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.